We are live. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Sean from All Things EV here, going strong with a live stream to talk about batteries. I've been doing a lot of talking about batteries, as you probably have seen with my recent videos, and I really am trying to go deep into this topic. To sort of understand the fundamentals of it, how it works, the importance of it. There's a few reasons for that. One of the things that I'm realizing is that battery cells are a fundamental cost of an electric vehicle. So understanding how that works and how automakers drive down cost of battery cells, I think is a really important topic to dig deep into. So today is going to be about some of the things that are happening on the Tesla side. As you know, Tesla acquired Maxwell Tech. I'll dive into a little bit of that. I also want to talk about some new movement on battery cell production and agreements with battery cell providers that other large automakers have secured. So what I'll do to sort of make this easy to watch for those that are not watching live is I'll go through and I'll talk through some of the articles that are in the description of this video first, and then I'll go back and address any questions. That way I'm making the most of people's time and respecting everyone's time. So the first one that I want to dive into, well, let me just sort of back up and talk a little bit about Tesla. As you may have seen, Tesla officially closed on their acquisition of Maxwell Tech. It means lots of really great things for Tesla. It's better range, better energy density, lower cost of production. And this is, I think, something that Tesla has been working on for quite a while. You know, if you follow them for any time period, you know that they've in the past talked a lot about this magical $100 per kilowatt hour cell cost. And as of maybe like the last, I don't know, 9 months, they've gotten really, really quiet on that. And they've even been asked the question if they have hit that $100 per kilowatt hour battery cell cost, and they've sort of shrugged it off. And my guess is they've been trying to work out this Maxwell deal. And sort of a side note, but very, very similar. I don't know if you noticed, but over the weekend, Elon Musk liked my YouTube video about the 5 reasons Tesla bought Maxwell. And to me, that's really, really interesting. You know, I think that he's very well aware. I'm going to see if I can pull it up here. I think he's very well aware that people see when he likes a post. And it is sort of an indirect nod, a subtle nod to as an endorsement. So I'm not sure if it shows up reversed, but you can sort of see at the top I've circled his name, and then an arrow down to my video, which is right there. So to me, that's sort of an indirect nod to these 5 things which I talked about. And one of them, which I think is really interesting, is the last one, the 5th point, which is the speculative point, which is Tesla intends to go vertical with their cell production, part ways with Panasonic, or maybe not officially part ways initially in the near term, but I think that Tesla will start to produce their own cells, and Maxwell technology is going to be the avenue that they do that in, and this will be their sort of new generation of battery tech. So sort of back to the original point that Tesla has long talked about this $100 per kilowatt hour price point. And as of, let me see if I've got the article pulled up here. So I do have these articles that I'm talking about in the description of the video, so you can reference them. One of the articles from Electric talks about their goal to achieve the $100 per kilowatt hour battery cell cost this year. This article was published in 2018, September 11th, 2018. So this was a couple of years ago. No. Sorry, this is 2019, right? So this was last year, fall of last year. We saw Tesla talking about this publicly, but they recently got really, really quiet on this. This appears to be the magical number that Tesla needs, or that Tesla needed, in order to sell that $35,000 Model 3. And if you go back to late last year and beginning of 2019, Elon Musk talked about announcing the $35,000 Model 3 sometime in the summer. I think he said June, May or June. And then they went ahead and they announced at the end of February that they were going to be announcing it then. And then they sort of officially but unofficially backtracked and put it off menu. So technically it's still available if you go into a store. But it's a little bit more difficult to sorry, I'm losing my train of thought because I'm looking at the comments. So they backtracked on that 35K Model 3, and at that time, around the March timeframe, they still had not closed on the Maxwell Tech deal. So part of me wonders if Tesla was counting on the acquisition of the Maxwell deal in order to drive the cost down low enough to make the $35,000 Model 3 a profitable vehicle. And since it took a little bit longer than, maybe I'm just guessing here, since it took a little bit longer to close that deal, perhaps that's why they took it off menu and are technically still offering it. And now that Maxwell deal is closed, maybe we might see that go back on the main website once Tesla starts producing a lower cost battery cell and reaching that $100 per kilowatt hour cell. So battery cell cost is fundamental to making an affordable electric vehicle. This is a really good segue into some of the other news that's sort of been popping up. And one of those things that popped up last week, I believe, is it hit the news that Volvo secured a multi-billion-dollar battery supply deal with a couple of different cell providers. KATL, which is a Chinese Chinese battery cell manufacturer, as well as LG Chem, which is in Korea. And this I think is a really, really fundamental and important piece of this, to make sure that sort of large scale agreement with battery cell suppliers is locked in order to begin the process of making electric vehicles. Now, that's sort of one piece, and I think that the piece that you tend to see with automakers that are making electric vehicles, but I don't think that is where things need to be in order to get that healthy profit margin for electric vehicles that are below $40,000 US dollars. If you're in that sub $40,000 price point, you're either razor thin margins or you're losing money on the vehicles. And that's why I think you haven't seen a lot of automakers really push that sub $40,000 vehicle a whole lot, and why you see automakers going in at that premium level, like Audi e-tron and like Jaguar I-Pace, and like you'll see with the Porsche Taycan. But in order to get that profit margin for those sub $40,000 vehicles, it's actually getting dark. It's super wintry today. It's like in the 30s, and it was snowing earlier when I was coming back from a meeting. But so it's actually cloudy and getting dark, which is a bit unusual. But I'm of the opinion, and as I read more into this and do more research, where I think that automakers need to be in order to have that healthy profit margin for those lower priced, more affordable cars, is for automakers to build their own, quote, gigafactory like what Tesla has done. In fact, we saw this just last week when VW Group announced a $1 billion plus investment into their own battery cell production facility in Germany, in Salzgitter, which, by the way, I've actually been there. And partnering together with a company called Northvolt, which is based out of Sweden and run by a CEO who came from Tesla. He was like a supply chain manager, and he started this Swedish battery cell provider who touts the greenest batteries in the industry. And so, they look at the sources of their materials, their chemistry, the raw materials, and they ensure that it's coming from non-conflict areas, and they make sure that they're doing it in the most sustainable way. Well, VW Group announced this partnership and this investment into this this battery cell production facility in Germany, and this makes a lot of sense because VW Group recently, I think I recently read this somewhere. I don't think I have it pulled up, but I'm just pulling it up off of memory. But VW Group intends to, across all of their brands, produce something like 3 million electric vehicles by 2025. I think that's the mark. And any of you who can pull that up and confirm that, please do. Let me see if it's in my notes here. I'm gonna do a video correction. So in this announcement of the VW ID3 that took place last week, the CEO said that they intend on making 1 million EVs sold by 2025, and I believe that's across all of their brands. And one of the reasons why they're producing this battery facility is because I think that they know that they need to drive the cost down. And one of the fundamental ways to be able to do that is to control more of that production process. And I think this is going to be what you will see with other automakers that are truly serious about making electric vehicles. I think this will actually be a really great litmus test for any automaker who is serious about truly making electric vehicles and not just having them be compliance vehicles for states who are requiring a certain number of sales of zero emissions vehicles and electric vehicles. So these are some of the things that I'm thinking about, and I want to tease one thing here. So next Wednesday, I believe, let me confirm this, I'm actually having a guest that I'm going to interview who is a PhD student in battery cell chemistry. So he's a smart dude. Let me see if I've got this pulled up here. I don't have it in my calendar, but it is next week. I believe it's next Wednesday, the 29th. I'll get more information out to everyone. But this is a continuation of this quest to sort of understand the fundamentals of batteries. And so I've got a list already to him of questions that I've got that'll cover things like longevity of batteries, what it looks like to go from raw materials to battery cells and battery packs, the advantages and disadvantages of cylindrical cells like the ones that I've got here versus the pouch style cells that you see a lot of automakers going towards. So more to come on that. Should be an interview next week. I'm not sure if I'll do it live. Sort of makes sense, but there are some limitations to that. I believe that he's going to be preparing some slides. So keep an eye out for that at a very minimum. I'm not sure if we'll do it live. If we don't do it live, I will put it up as soon as possible because I think it's going to be a real phenomenal interview. And there's a lot of armchair critics out there for battery cells and battery production. I figured this would be the best way to sort of get it from someone who knows it at a very chemistry level. So look out for that. All right, so I'm going to go through and take some of your questions here. Do you think that Tesla will start Model Y production in the U.S. next year, considering latest comments from Panasonic about battery shortages? I have a feeling that the Maxwell technology, if they can get that implemented into the production process, will have a really huge impact on cell production. Next question: do you think that Tesla will ever sell battery upgrades for older cars? I don't think so. No, I think it's too much trouble, and I think they'd rather have you buy a new car. Okay, so we'll allow that link there. Tesla Motors Club post battery. Thank you, Brandon, for the battery thread there. Tesla should get into photonic. Let's see here. Do you think Tesla will ever go about purchasing or take a large majority share in a lithium mine? Yeah, this is something that I think I talked about in one of my recent videos about Tesla acquiring Maxwell Tech. In fact, it was the video where I talked about the Tesla and Panasonic potentially parting ways. I would not be surprised if Tesla continues to get more vertical with their cell production. So if they start producing their own cells, to me, I could see Tesla very likely wanting to own the actual mines and in other facilities. So the places where they harvest the raw materials. This is lithium. This is the other metals that are mined. The reason why is I think that they probably can better control costs, and they can better ensure that it's not coming from conflict regions, and that it's being done in a very sustainable way. So I would not be surprised if they do that, but I think that might be a next step. So I think a very likely near-term step would be to start producing their own battery cells. And then once they have that down, maybe in several years, they might move to acquire the companies that actually harvest the raw materials. All right, so looking through some more. The question: how long do you estimate it will take to implement the new Maxwell Tech? I don't know. I mean, I would not be surprised if, and again, I've got no direct inside knowledge of this, so it's just one guy who follows the company closely talking about what he thinks will happen. So, my guess is they were probably having some conversations with Maxwell before this thing closed to talk about next steps. So assuming that, sorry, I'm trying to do a better job at not shaking the desk, but I like to talk with my hands. So I would not be surprised if they were already talking about implementation before the acquisition actually closed, because the sooner they get this production process that Maxwell has into their existing process for battery cells, the sooner they can start saving money and increasing energy density and cost. And there may need to be some validation for that technology, but it seems like Tesla should have already done that before they acquired the Maxwell. So I would guess that they've already done their due diligence in-house, and that's why they decided to buy Maxwell. So I don't see them taking a whole lot of time to implement that. When will we see the new batteries in the Model 3? So here's sort of my guess as to how Tesla will approach this. I think that this new generation of battery technology will go in their most expensive products first, right? It costs money to acquire Maxwell to the sum of something like $230 million. It's going to take some time in some capex to probably execute and implement this. And so my guess is they probably want to start with the highest margin vehicles first, which means Roadster, semi-truck, and then Model S and X, and probably way down the line, 5 years-ish, we may see this in Model 3 and Model Y. Maybe, but maybe they could take the approach of this is going to reduce costs significantly, so we need to get the battery cells that cost less into the lowest margin cars to increase the profit margin. Who knows? Yeah, cobalt is definitely an issue. Tesla has talked about eliminating cobalt completely. It appears like Maxwell Technologies does have a pathway for eliminating the cobalt, but I don't understand if that's with their current technology or with future technology. It wasn't that clear in their presentation, Maxwell presentation. Do you see Tesla ever selling some of the battery packs to other manufacturers 5 to 10 years? Yeah, it really depends on Tesla's financial situation. If they need money, they could go back to a strategy that they took back in the early days of Tesla. You know, some of you may not know, but Tesla had an agreement, a supply agreement with Toyota, where they supplied the drivetrain, the battery pack, and electric motors for Toyota RAV4s. They actually did the same thing with Mercedes-Benz vehicles too. So if Tesla needs money, to me, it seems like a reasonable approach. You know, I think battery technology, maybe they could be selling their older 18650 battery chemistry cell technology to. I don't see them doing that with new technology that they've paid a lot of money for, but maybe with their old tech, and their old tech is still to this day better than current automakers' new tech. So to me, that's just really fascinating. Let's see here. How soon in the future do you think we will see a genuine 400-mile range? Well, Tesla just updated their S and X. Model S is at 370 miles. It's been rumored that Tesla is going to do a refresh of the interior. So knowing that Tesla just updated the range of Model S and X by way of that front electric motor, they would probably, I'm guessing here, they would probably not make any range updates to the battery, or they wouldn't make any range updates to Model S and X, but could very likely sometime in the near future see an update to interior, and then maybe a year from now introduce Model S and X updates of range to above 400 miles. Traditionally, they've done like a, what is it, like a 5% range increase annually. There was a big gap over the last like 2 or 3 years where they didn't make any range increases on that existing 100 kilowatt hour battery. And then finally this year they did a range update, which is great. So I wouldn't be surprised if they wait to bump that range up until next year. Do you think they will delay an expansion at Giga 1, maybe to allow for integration of Maxwell tech? I mean, theoretically, Maxwell tech should allow them to do more with the same existing physical footprint. So they shouldn't need to expand that, because according to Maxwell's tech, it's supposed to reduce the efficiency of production by, I think it was 16x. So they you know, I think Elon Musk for certain has said publicly that they do not intend on making any other updates or expansions to Gigafactory until they can get more efficiency out of it. And that was before they closed on the Maxwell deal. So they may have had that Maxwell deal in mind when referring to it. Let's see here, whether Roadster 2020 test vehicle Maxwell. Yeah, I think that the 2020 Roadster had Maxwell tech in it, as well as the semi truck. When they showed that off in, gosh, when was that? It seems like forever ago, right? That was 2017. This is 2019. So it was a year ago this past November. Yeah, so November 2017 is when they showed off the Roadster and the semi truck. I think that they had Maxwell tech batteries in them. And uh, Tesla originally had a purchase agreement, a supplier agreement with Maxwell to buy their batteries without acquiring them. And I think at some point, um, Tesla just decided to acquire them, to own that tech. So yeah, I do think that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, Jeff, speculate on how fast supercapacitors can charge. I don't know enough about supercapacitors. I only have a surface level knowledge of what supercapacitors do. That being said, I will speculate here. So my understanding of supercapacitors is that they don't have a high energy density, but they have a high energy output, meaning that they can, or high energy input and output, so they can take a high rate of charge in, and they can also emit a high output of energy based on electrostatic. Um, so to me, that means that theoretically it should be able to be implemented into things like fast acceleration, high charge rate, and to me, Roadster and semi truck just scream supercapacitors because of their large battery packs. So we'll see how that. I really, again, don't know enough about supercapacitors, and in fact, maybe that's another interview that I do where I try and find an expert in what would that be, like electrochemistry, something like electricity. Maybe it's an electrician, maybe it's a commercial scale electrician, or something like that I can sit down and interview. Okay. Looking for some more questions here. What's this concern about range? How many people look at the size of their gas tank for their ICE vehicles? Well, for a long time, electric vehicles have been at large. There's been a large gap between an electric vehicle car's range and the distance that a gasoline vehicle can go on a single tank. And so, luxury vehicles at this point, any larger sedans are easily going above 400 miles. When I had my Subaru Legacy, which was a 2015, I think it was a brand new 2015 or 2016 Subaru Legacy. That one went 420 miles on a single tank of gas, if I recall. So people who drive gasoline vehicles are used to that, and to me, that's one of the things that is a disadvantage with buying an electric vehicle. It just doesn't go as far. It's not the same parity. And once it crosses over that, let's say 400 mile for sure, but 350 plus mile, I think that it's a very convincing purchase. Reading through some more of the comments here. All right. So what are we at? We're at almost 30 minutes here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. Yeah, I will ask my guest next week about the super caps, although he may actually know something about them. If not, then I'll look to having someone else on the channel to talk more knowledgeably about the implications of supercapacitors. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. Really appreciate everyone's time. And if the conversation and the topic was valuable, please share this out. And that really helps these videos get more exposure, more views. And of course, that is returned to me in ad revenue, which allows me then to reinvest back into videos and production and all of that stuff. So really appreciate the time and attention. And I'll talk with everyone on the next video. See ya.